For God's sake, let us be men, not monkeys minding machines, or sitting with our tails curled while the machine amuses us, the radio, or film, or gramophone. Monkeys with a bland grin on our faces. This is D.H. Lawrence's short poem, Let Us Be Men, from his 1929 collection, Pansies. 5 lines, 1 outburst, and, unfortunately, a fairly accurate description of modern life. Lawrence was writing in the age of the radio, the film, the gramophone, the factory, the motorcar, and the modern machine. He was not writing about smartphones. He was not writing about social media. He was not writing about algorithmic recommendation systems, or artificial intelligence, or people spending 3 hours arguing with a rectangle before realizing they have not stood up since breakfast. But he might as well have been. For God's sake, let us be men. It is an urgent sentence, not polite, not carefully balanced, not academic. A cry of exasperation. And then comes the image, not monkeys minding machines. That is the first warning. Do not become a creature whose life is spent serving the machine. Do not become merely the attendant, the operator, the nervous little animal who keeps the system going. Then Lawrence adds a second warning, or sitting with our tails curled while the machine amuses us. That is worse, because now we are not even minding the machine. We are being entertained by it. The radio, the film, the gramophone. In Lawrence's time, these were modern technologies of mass amusement. They brought sound, image, music, voices, drama, and distraction into ordinary life. Lawrence saw the danger immediately. The machine would not only take over work, it would take over leisure. It would not merely command our hands, it would occupy our attention. And attention, for Lawrence, was close to life itself. D.H. Lawrence was born in 1885 in Eastwood, Nottinghamshire, in the English Midlands. He grew up in a coal mining region. His father was a miner. His mother had been a schoolteacher. That background mattered deeply. Lawrence knew industrial England from the inside. He was not writing about machinery from a gentleman's distance. He had seen the mining villages, the grime, the class system, the physical exhaustion, the ugliness of work drained of life. At the same time, he was not simply nostalgic for some pretty rural postcard. Lawrence could be harsh, contradictory, unfair, and sometimes deeply uncomfortable. But he returned again and again to one central question. What happens to human beings when modern civilization cuts them off from the body, from instinct, from nature, from real contact, from living energy? That question runs through his novels, his essays, his travel writing, and his poems. It is there in Sons and Lovers. It is there in The Rainbow. It is there in Women in Love. It is there in Lady Chatterley's Lover. And it is compressed almost violently into Let Us Be Men. The poem comes from Pansies. The title is a pun. Lawrence meant these poems partly as pensées, thoughts, short, sharp, passing thoughts, not grand monuments, not marble statues, not poems trying politely to behave themselves. He wanted them to be living things, brief, earthy, irritating, perishable. Like flowers that bloom, give off their smell, and then are gone. That helps explain the tone of this poem. Let Us Be Men is not a polished philosophical argument. It is a flash of disgust, a moral sneeze, a small prophetic insult. And sometimes a small insult is exactly what civilization deserves. Now, the word men needs a word of explanation. Lawrence writes, Let us be men. In the context of the poem, he is using men in the older general sense of human beings, mankind, humanity. The contrast is not men versus women. The contrast is human beings versus monkeys. Human beings versus machine servants. Human beings versus passive animals being amused into vacancy. That does not mean Lawrence's writing about sex and gender is simple. It is not. Lawrence can be brilliant, infuriating, liberating, reactionary, tender, and maddening, sometimes on the same page. But in this poem, the exhortation is broader than gender. He is saying, for God's sake, let us be human. Let us not become clever primates sitting beside our machines with bland grins on our faces. Which, as historical prophecies go, was not bad. The poem's first target is work. Monkeys minding machines. This is the world of industrial labor. The human being reduced to an appendage of the machine. The machine sets the pace. The machine defines the motion. The machine consumes the body's hours. The worker's own life does not enter the work. Lawrence hated that. He believed human beings needed work with life in it. Work that involved the body, the senses, the imagination, the whole person. He did not want human beings reduced to efficient parts inside a mechanical order. But the poem's second target may be even more relevant now. Sitting with our tails curled while the machine amuses us. That is not work. That is leisure. That is entertainment. That is what happens after work, when the exhausted human being collapses and lets the machine supply the dream. In 1929, the dream came through radio, film, and gramophone. Today, the list would be longer. Television, streaming, feeds, notifications, autoplay, short videos, infinite scroll, personalized outrage, algorithmic desire, machine-written text, machine-made images, machine-selected music, machine-suggested friends, machine-assisted loneliness. The machine no longer merely amuses us. It studies us while it amuses us. Progress. Lawrence's phrase, bland grin, is especially cruel. He does not imagine the monkey screaming. He does not imagine rebellion. He imagines a bland grin. That is the face of a creature that has adapted too well. A creature that has ceased to notice its own diminishment. A creature that is comfortable, entertained, and spiritually vacant. This is why the poem feels so current. Lawrence was not merely afraid that machines would become powerful. He was afraid that human beings would become less alive, less inwardly free, less bodily present, less capable of solitude, less capable of real feeling, less capable of direct contact with the world. And here we are. We have machines that work for us, machines that entertain us, machines that think with us, machines that write for us, machines that flatter us, machines that predict us, and machines that quietly train us to behave in ways profitable to machines. We carry them in our pockets. We sleep beside them. We touch them before we touch the morning. A person in Lawrence's day could turn off the gramophone. A modern person must negotiate with an ecosystem. The poem is not anti-technology in the simple sense. At least, it does not have to be read that way. The problem is not that machines exist. The problem is that human beings begin to exist for machines. That is the distinction. A tool can extend human life. A machine order can replace it. A tool can help us make, repair, learn, communicate, compose, discover. But a machine can also train us to react, consume, repeat, obey, and grin blandly while doing it. This is where the poem becomes uncomfortable for anyone using artificial intelligence to make a video about D.H. Lawrence. There is no point pretending otherwise. Lawrence would probably have hated much of this. A machine voice reading literature, a machine image illustrating it, a machine helping assemble the commentary. Somewhere, one imagines, Lawrence is knocking over a gramophone. But the point is not to refuse every tool. The point is to ask whether the tool increases life or drains it. Does it help us see more clearly? Does it help us return to the poem? Does it sharpen attention? Does it deepen contact? Does it lead us back to life? Or does it simply amuse the monkey? That is the test. Let Us Be Men is not a subtle poem. It is not trying to be. It is a slap. It is a warning. It is Lawrence at his most impatient. But behind the impatience is a serious vision. Lawrence believed that human beings were not merely minds, not merely workers, not merely consumers, not merely citizens, not merely units of production, not merely audiences, not merely data. We are living bodies, mysterious, contradictory, animal, spiritual, sexual, mortal, in contact with earth, sun, blood, breath, fear, desire, and death. Modern life, in his view, was always trying to flatten that mystery, to make us useful, predictable, hygienic, entertained, mechanized. Let Us Be Men asks us not to accept that flattening. It asks us not to become monkeys minding machines, and not to become monkeys amused by machines. It asks us to be human beings with a life of our own. That may sound simple. It is not. Because the machine world does not arrive only as oppression. It arrives as convenience, as pleasure, as efficiency, as entertainment, as connection, as opportunity, as productivity, as personalization. It rarely says, "I have come to make you less human." It says, "Here is something you might like." And we do. That is the problem. So what would it mean now to take Lawrence seriously? Not to smash the machines, not necessarily. Not to retreat into theatrical purity. Not to pretend we are not modern people. But perhaps to ask, each day, am I using this machine? Or am I minding it? Is it helping me live? Or merely keeping me occupied? Is it opening the world? Or replacing the world? Is it increasing my power to feel, think, make, love, walk, look, listen, and choose? Or is it teaching me to sit with my tail curled, with a bland grin on my face? Lawrence's poem is almost a century old. Its machines are antique now. Radio, film, gramophone. Charming little ancestors of our present captivity. But the warning has not aged. If anything, the poem has become less quaint, more direct, more embarrassing. Because we have not merely become what Lawrence warned against, we have refined it. We have optimized it. We have made it portable. We have given it better lighting, faster processors, subscription tiers, and a friendly interface. For God's sake, Lawrence says, let us be men. Let us be human. Not perfect, not pure, not anti-modern saints, but awake, embodied, capable of attention, capable of refusing amusement when amusement becomes anesthesia, capable of using tools without becoming tools. That is the force of the poem. It is short because it does not need to be long. It has one thing to say. Wake up. Look at what you are becoming. And for God's sake, do not grin blandly while it happens. For God's sake, let us be men, not monkeys minding machines, or sitting with our tails curled while the machine amuses us, the radio or film or gramophone. Monkeys with a bland grin on our faces.